Welcome to the Luxury Listing Specialist Podcast with Michael LaFido, where top luxury agents reveal their best practices, plus interviews with real estate industry influencers, thought leaders, and luxury marketing experts. You'll come away from each episode with new strategies and tactics to dominate high-end homes in any market. And now for the latest episode of Luxury Listing Specialist. Here's your host, luxury real estate expert, coach, and trainer, Michael LaFido.
Welcome back to another episode of Luxury Specialist. You're in the right place. If you're a team leader, you're an individual agent, you're looking to work smarter, not harder, as 2023 is approaching fast. And as you know, goal setting should have already been done for the new year. However, it's not too late. If you haven't done so, we want you to start doing it now, today. It's never too late. It's never too late to turn a new page and start a new chapter. Today's episode, we're really excited. We have a guest on, but just a reminder, a couple housekeeping items. But first and foremost, if you have a question for me, you're listening to this episode a month, 3 months after it was launched, please shoot me an email, michael@marketingluxurygroup.com. michael@marketingluxurygroup.com is the best way to get a hold of me. Or for those of you that watch our Luxury Fridays, you can always shoot us a note on our chat feature. You don't have to download anything. You can literally just type in a question on our Luxury Fridays, typically Fridays at 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern. And again, if you know of somebody that would be a great guest, please, by all means, don't keep it a secret. Shoot me an email, nominate them, or perhaps that's you. Perhaps you had a breakthrough in 2022. You launched a luxury division, or you increased your average sale price. You have a successful sale you want to talk about. You think the other agents and broker owners watching would benefit, then please don't keep it a secret. Let me know about it. You know, we got a guest on today that I'm really excited to bring on. But before I do that, if you are getting value from this podcast, these episodes, please leave us a like, leave us a review. If we've earned a 5-star review, again, we're on Spotify, Stitcher, on our podcast. Please do so. We can always use more of those. Just like you as an agent, don't be afraid to ask. If you did a great job for a buyer or seller, you can't make the assumption they're not naturally going to give you a positive review. You need to ask for it, and I'm doing that if we've earned it. Just a reminder, questions. If you are watching Luxury Fridays, you can type your questions in the comment sections in future episodes, and on our podcast, you can shoot me an email. Again, I'm your host, Michael LaFido. I'm the founder of the Lux designation. We help agents work smarter, not harder, and increase their average sale price. From time to time, we bring on guests that are success stories. People that have invested in themselves, has taken our course, and they're actually implementing. And also from time to time, we have strategic partners, service providers we recommend. But today's guest, you know, there's an old adage, generals get paid and specials get wealthy. Today's guest, we're going to be talking about tips and advice for realtors, for agents, for broker owners looking to work with athletes and celebrities. So again, if you're in Beverly Hills, it might be easier to work with celebrities, but you have athletes in NFL 32 cities, right? And Major League Baseball and NHL, and there's also minor league baseball and the NBA, and there's tons of different sports out there, and athletes don't necessarily even live in those cities. So tips and advice for working with athletes and celebrities is our topic for today. And no better person to bring on than Rod Watson out of Beverly Hills. Rod, are you there with us today?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks for having me today, Mike.
Hey, thank you so much. Rod Watson, who is with the Distinct Concierge Real Estate. You're out of Beverly Hills. Been licensed. Tell everybody a little bit about you. I'd rather you introduce yourself. I won't do it justice.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Happy holidays to you again. Thanks for having me. So yeah, my name is Rod Watson. I'm actually from Houston, Texas, which is where I was born and raised. Been in the business now going on 17 years. I've worked, as an agent and also as an investor. Started out actually as an investor, licensed in 2 states, Texas and California. I'm married. I've been married 20 years this year next year in July. I've been married almost 20 years, so we're halfway there.
Yeah.
daughters. I live an amazing life, and I really love what I do, and I'm excited to talk about that today.
Well, thank you. As you know, in my brief introduction, we're going to be talking about tips and advice for real estate agents
Yep.
looking to work with athletes and celebrities. I know you just had a big $10.5 million closing this week on a buy side. We can talk about that today as well.
Yep.
But I'm going to pull up your website for those that are watching this podcast. But for those that aren't, I will verbally give it to you. You go to distinctconciergere.com, distinctconciergere.com. So obviously a lot of sports and entertainment, and let's dive right into that. Let's talk about do's and don'ts. Obviously in Beverly Hills, there's more opportunities on the entertainment side of things. But when you hear the term, because you see some real estate brokerages launch sports and entertainment divisions, let's first, before we talk about sports, pretty self-explanatory there, but by entertainment, what would you determine would be the entertainment side of real estate brokerage and real estate agency?
So, what would be the entertainment side? Is your question correct?
Yes, correct.
I mean, the entertainment side is basically you're going to be that specific is big. I mean, it's a very broad audience when you talk about entertainment because a lot of people know California, Hollywood is the entertainment capital. It's the mecca. So you have everything from producers, directors, screenwriters, actors. Talent is the term that they use. Their agents, their business managers. I mean, it's a very broad, network of people, very powerful network of people, and one, I would say that network is a little bit more challenging to tap into. I mean, it has to really be deep relationships, sometimes, oftentimes, long lasting relationships, because there has to be a high level of trust for those individuals to turn their clients over to you and trust that you're going to provide them with the service and care that they are expecting. So I would say the entertainment industry is very broad, and California, specifically in Los Angeles, Hollywood, Beverly Hills is the mecca, and it's a rich audience. I mean, yes, there is a lot of opportunity in that space. From my experience, I've worked with a handful of entertainers. I've actually worked with more athletes than entertainers, just because I'm a former athlete myself. But having the opportunity to work in LA in the last 5 years, I've had opportunity to really see the entertainment space from a different perspective. I mean, you also have on the entertainment side, you have people that are really behind the scenes that are very successful. Some of them make just as much money as the actors do, sometimes more. So having an opportunity to learn that side, make connections, and build relationships has really opened my eyes to the opportunities that are there. And that's actually a space that we're continually working to gain traction in. So I've made some really good contacts between, 2021 and this year in the entertainment space. So we're really excited about what that's going to bring in the near future.
That's awesome. I appreciate the insight to define entertainment, right? I knew the answer, but our audience doesn't, and that's really what this is all about. Again, Michael LaFido, you're listening to Luxury Specialist. We have on here Rod Watson out of Beverly Hills, but also originally from the Houston market, and that's important too. I
Mhm.
want to bring that up because Rod, many people, even myself with our designation when they're teaching courses, people say, well, that's easy. You're in this market or you're in that market. But in your case, you're a transplant, right? You weren't born in Beverly Hills. You didn't go to high school there. You don't have deep roots there. So you've been there a short period of time. And
Yeah.
so, in the past couple of years with COVID, there are a lot of listeners that perhaps their families picked up and moved to a new city, new state. And so, let's talk about the don'ts when it comes to working with high net worth individuals, period, but high celebrities, people that perhaps maybe aren't even a celebrity as you and I know them as far as TV shows or a big time athlete, but maybe a smaller athlete or a business owner that if you walk past them on the street, you wouldn't know who they are, but perhaps they have a lot of employees underneath them. So talk to me a little bit about do's and don'ts when it comes to letting people know who you're working with.
Yeah, that's a great topic to discuss, and great question. Well, let's start with the don'ts. I mean, I think at the end of the day, when you talk about the don'ts, I think it's important to have a clear understanding of the value that you're going to be offering this audience. And when it comes to the don'ts, I think things that stand out to me is, you know, do what you say you're going to do. first and foremost. Stand behind your name and your brand. Be consistent. The last thing you want to do is put yourself out there and not be able to stand behind your service and your product. The other thing is
So
understand.
don't over promise and under deliver.
Don't overpromise and underdeliver. The other thing is transparency, being honest. Keep being honest up front. Also, things you don't want to do is you definitely want to be able to respect these individuals' privacy. And ask the right questions when you're speaking with either the talent, the athlete, or their advisors, and getting a clear understanding of what their needs are. And the things you don't want to do is share that information. The information that you're getting from them, that information needs to remain private. The last thing you want to do is be sharing information about these individuals, because that can ruin your future opportunities to earn income in this space. It's not like working with traditional buyers and sellers. I mean, you have very, fickle individuals in this space. Small little things can really lead to distrust when it really comes around privacy, discretion, right, and being discreet. And so the things you don't want to do is definitely overlook the fact that that is a big factor in having success in this space, aside from being trustworthy and doing the things that you say you're going to do and delivering on those things in a consistent way. The
Mm-hmm.
last, as far as the don'ts, is you know don't try to be pushy in this space. Build relationships. Take your time and be patient with the process if you don't already have a relationship in place. And if you do have relationships in place, the thing I'll say about that, as far as the don'ts, is never not put your best foot forward in any situation when working in this space. All right. Always make sure that you are going above and beyond for these clients. And it's just like in sports. In football, they tell you, if you're a running back, I was a running back. You can't put the ball on the ground. If you turn the ball over, you're giving your opponent another possession and opportunity to put points on the board. So in this space, you have to be on your A game, and you cannot come, to the game and not be prepared.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great point. Confidentiality
Yep.
is really important. Let's talk about confidentiality. You just had a $10.5 million sale. You represented the buyer. Let's say you're working with an athlete, a celebrity, high net worth individual. Again, luxury, by the way, those that are joining us for the first time, luxury is all relative, right? So maybe you're in Davenport, Iowa, and you don't have $10.5 million listings. Don't be discouraged, right? So I define luxury as a home that is 3 times the average sale price for your given market. So if the average sale price is 250, 250 times 3 is in that 750 range is luxury. Now, ultra luxury is what we would define as a home or condo or townhouse that's 10 times the average sale price for your given market. So, you just had a $10.5 million buyer you worked with. Let's say you are working with an athlete, they want to remain confidential. How do you overcome that objection or that hurdle where the listing agent wants to see proof of funds before allowing a showing? I worked with the big time Chicago Bear recently. We helped him buy a home. I sold his home. And so, when you're out showing properties, you don't want to name drop, right? You name drop part-time Patty, you know, uh, you know, Dinosaur Dan, the listing agent, you drop a name, who knows? Unless you get a confidentiality agreement signed, and that might be your answer, they
Yep.
might be posting that, hey, Shaq is looking at my listing today, or they post a picture of Shaq walking through the home, right? So what tips and suggestions you have when presenting that high net worth individual, perhaps that celebrity, perhaps that athlete that wants to see a home, or maybe you're previewing it on their behalf, right? So talk to me a little bit about that. I've gone through it. I know the answers, but you're the guest. I want you to talk about it.
Yeah. So another good question. I mean, for me, I think it really comes down to the relationship that you either have or you don't have with the listing agent, right? And being familiar with that listing agent. So if you're going to be showing properties to a celebrity or to an athlete, look that agent up, check out that agent's background, see if they have a history of working in the same space. Typically, most agents that work in the ultra high luxury have had some form of contact in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills area with an athlete or an entertainer. And so many of those agents don't want to ruin relationships. They understand the value of relationships with other agents that they're going to be collaborating with, because also it's very important for them, because they also have to represent their clients and do their jobs and get the property sold. But in the event, how I handle the situation is very clear communication. I don't give the client's name. I let them know I have a client that is interested in the property. If the question does come up about proof of funds or, questions about the client, what I tell them is, hey, listen, I'm working with someone that's high profile, and it is necessary, if your client is okay, for us to get an NDA signed, a non-disclosure agreement. The other thing I do is I also will put them in contact directly with the client's, which is my client's representative or advisor. So that could be their attorney, their business manager, maybe it's the parent, the mom, the dad. I've had situations like that where they'll talk with them directly, and those advisors will provide the actual listing agent the documentation that they need after the NDA is signed. So that's pretty much how we handle that situation. I
Yeah.
haven't had I haven't had any negative experience. I mean, I've been fortunate in the 5 years, and you got to factor in, out of the 5 years, I've been in California. Let me just be clear, working as a licensed real estate agent since 2011, started in San Diego. And then I worked my way into Los Angeles once I pivoted it from the distressed market into luxury sales. But with that being said, I just want to pinpoint that it's just important when you're working in this space, you know, being very clear about, when you talk about representations and working with athletes, you have to make sure that, again, you're protecting that information and privacy, but you can do it in a professional way. So with that being said, I've been fortunate because, 2 years I lost working in, with COVID in Los Angeles. So technically I really been in LA 3 years, and within that 3 year period of time, we've been able to service over 18 athletes and entertainers. So I haven't had any negative experiences like that, but, understanding how to communicate and understanding the importance of protecting that client's privacy is a must, and you cannot compromise that. You cannot fumble or drop or make a mistake. So it's really important to just make that very clear when you're communicating with listing agents, in regards to protecting that client's privacy. And I've never had any pushback in those scenario situations. Usually the other side, like I said, they're used to celebrities coming in and seeing their homes, or celebrity representatives inquiring about their listings. So they understand how to handle that process. But if you are in a market where that's not common, it is very important to just communicate, hey, you don't give the client's name. You just express to them you're working with a high profile client, and will their client be willing to sign an NDA to protect your client's privacy? And 99% of the time, the answer is going to be yes, because the listing agent share a duty to represent his client in a professional manner. And if that means signing an NDA to protect their privacy, I mean, there's a high likely possibility that that client may end up buying their listing. They're going to do their job and abide by that. Now, there may be some questions, things like that, but typically they're going to say yes.
Good. Now let's flip the script. Now you represent a high-end seller, a luxury, probably a luxury condo, single-family home, an athlete. The news, the real deal, right? The real deal, LA, Chicago, New York. They're looking for celebrity. They're looking for athlete. They're trying to get the scoop when somebody lists their home.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I represented a big-time All-Pro NFL Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year here in Chicago, they're like, hey, let's keep it real confidential. And I said, I have no problem doing that. I'm talking to their management when we're strategizing. I just said, but just so you know, as soon as we put the home on the market, they've already written about this athlete buying this home. So they're going to write about this athlete listing the home. Now, if we don't give authorization to use our photos and that sort of thing, maybe they'll take something from Google Earth and put a crappy photo of the home on there and control the narrative as to why he's selling. Is he getting traded? What's going on? So we can roll that way. Or do you want to, it's going to be out in a day or two anyways. Do you want to go to them, be on the offense and control the narrative and control basically how they write the article? And so I don't want to use the word spin, but yes, spin it into a positive versus potentially into a negative. We were successful. The athlete gave the blessing on that. And so in that case, it was a win-win, because the Crane Chicago Business, Chicago Tribune, all these other syndication websites and big time publications outside of Illinois, they went with a positive story versus a perceived, hey, is he being traded? Why is he selling? Like all the questions in the locker room, we avoided that. So I'd be curious to see what you're on the list side, if you represented an athlete or entertainment out of those 18 sales in the last couple of years? Did you just roll it out and let people talk? Or did you say, hey, listen, man, we could get more exposure? So my market at the time, that market of the $4 million plus price point was still a buyer's market. It wasn't a seller's market. So we needed as much exposure positive wise as possible. How have you handled that?
Well, you just touched on it. I mean, specifically, just as you elaborated as far as how to handle that situation using spin to get ahead of the media's narrative, working towards creating your own narrative, and I call it a unique selling proposition, or what is the value proposition as far as how we're going to position this asset and bring it to the market. I've had those same, actually, I'm having that conversation right now with one of my clients who was planning to put on one of his big properties here in Los Angeles on the market in 2022 because we're being impacted by what's called a mansion tax, and that mansion tax is going to impact sales over 5 million to 10 million, by 4.5 to 5.5 or 5.5% if it's above 10 million. So one of the discussions I had with him, which is what you're sharing, is, hey, look, let's get ahead of this. He's a highly recognized athlete, NBA Hall of Famer, and I just said to him, I'm like, look, you have an amazing estate. Bottom line is, how the media is here in Los Angeles. You know that if that listings hit the market, TMZ, whoever, they're going to run their narrative. So just as you shared, let's get ahead of that. I have relationships in Architectural Digest. I have relationships with LA Times, Mansion Global, and also Forbes, and then also ESPN. And so I let him know. I said, look, we can create a nice narrative around this unique sale. And I think the thing is as you shared, you want to get the permission of the property owner. You want to express and make sure you're clear and explain to them the value, if there really is value there, in presenting the home that way. Now, I've had other scenarios where I have clients going through a divorce and they didn't want that information to get out there, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Towards a different strategy where I use the term in basketball, we had to pivot and we had to focus on off market sale, right? Trying to move the property in a dignified way with discretion, without anybody knowing. And what we were able to do is actually sell the property to one of his former teammates. So it's really about strategy and clear communication around what the client wants and what the client is comfortable with. Because sometimes there are scenarios and situations where celebrities and athletes, they don't want the public to know. But in Los Angeles, where I am, LA, Beverly Hills, it is pretty much common to see the celebrities being okay with actually beating the media, if you will, to the punch as far as,
Mm-hmm.
you know, how they're going to spin it, how they're going to market this, how they're going to put the story out around this
Right.
particular client, or the athlete or entertainer's estate. I've never seen anything negative here in the media. As far as I take that back, I've seen one negative scenario, and it was actually in the buy side, and LeBron James was buying a property and his address got posted all over the Real Deal, and I was very disappointed and actually kind of disturbed by that. But he wasn't on the listing side. But it's tough. I mean, I think at the end of the day, as long as the client is comfortable with it, it makes sense. You should move forward with that strategy as far as beating the media to the punch and making sure you're leveraging, because I think it's leverage, right? Whenever you can leverage that you have a star or very recognizable entertainer or athlete that is selling their home, everybody wants to write that story. So
Yeah.
Understanding who are the best writers in the industry, who are going to respect certain things that you're going to ask, and make sure that they're putting a story out that is directly um, you know what you and your client want is important. So you may also want to be doing your research on those individuals, but we handle it just pretty much the same way as you just shared. I think it's all about making sure the client is comfortable, and if they are, run with it, and use that to your advantage.
No, thank you for that. You're talking about leverage, right? So it's a lot easier with their permission to leverage a distinct sale or a property in this case when you represent the seller, because you can control the narrative and sometimes including who the owners is, name dropping does create some urgency, creates a premium uh,
Absolutely.
on the price. So is there any, besides the typical pre-approving, is there anything that you do when you represent a celebrity on the list side to go above and beyond to make sure it's not a tire kicker buyer, and that in fact that buyer is qualified, pre-approved? Talk to me about this. What are your qualifications typically as a marketing agent, as a listing agent, when representing one of these multi, you know, million, $10 million plus properties, celebrity owned? where some people might just want to get in there. So they say, hey, I came through LeBron's home or Shaq's or whoever it is.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's important that you vet everyone that's coming through the door. So one of the things I teach the team is, one, never be afraid to ask when someone is inquiring about a listing, specifically a celebrity or high profile client's listing. You want to definitely vet that individual. We'll Google them, look them up, make sure that they are who they say they are. We definitely are going to ask for proof of funds, and we're going to verify those funds. Don't just look at the document and say, oh, they're good. There should be a phone number on that document with someone that can contact, that can verify that those funds are there or available, and you want to pick up the phone and reach out. Or there should be an email where you can email those individuals and make sure that there's a real person on the other side that can confirm that the funds are there. And then, the other thing is, you want to talk to the person and kind of get a feel for, who they are, and find out a little bit about them, and what interests them about the property, right? Because at the end of the day, your job is to represent the client and to protect their best interest. And as you just shared, you don't want people that could be potentially working for the paparazzi, or individuals that could potentially be casing a home to come back later and still, to attempt to the home. These things happen a lot in Los Angeles if you've been paying attention to the media here in the last 2 or 3 years, especially during COVID, where we've seen a lot of home invasions, robberies in the city, and it has people on edge. So, we take that approach. Google is a good friend of ours where you can easily look up someone, especially typically people that are buying a 10, 25, or, $30 million property. They may not be celebrities, and most of them are not celebrities. Most of these people are highly successful at what they do, entrepreneurs, business owners, people that work in the tech space, et cetera. So you can typically find out a lot about individuals just by Googling their names. And if
Yeah.
you're not on Google, because there are situations like I had a billionaire come out to look at a property, and I didn't know, I never heard his name before. And then I Googled him and I couldn't find anything on him. But then when I dug a little bit deeper, and I asked, for the financials, and then I had my attorney run a search on him. He's like, oh yeah, this guy's tied to a Texas, hedge fund. And, he's a low profile individual. However, everything checked out. So sometimes you will have to dig a little deeper, but
Yeah.
that's the process that we typically take. Vet everyone, make sure they are who they say they are, ask questions. Again, it's your listing, it's you're representing your client. Your client is expecting you to protect them and do your job. So don't be afraid to dig and ask the questions that are necessary to make sure that you have a real buyer that's coming to, view the property.
Yeah, you bring up a good point too. The client is expecting you. Their time is valuable. I mean, many of these clients will bring in a cleaning crew for the showings, right? And the last thing you want to do is have them jump through all these hoops,
Yeah.
and you haven't vetted them. Couple things. I've recently had an agent who I've had some interactions with, and they don't specialize in luxury, and they inquired about a $6.5 million property I have, as well as one that I'm selling down in downtown Chicago in the Trump Tower. And he's saying, hey, I got an investor. He works for this hedge fund. And it was a unique, he wanted to buy, but pay something up front with the seller holding back some money. It just sounded, so I couldn't find anything on Google on this gentleman's name, because the letter explained things with the potential buyer's name. So one thing I did, Rod, is I went on LinkedIn, and this guy was from Utah. And there were 4 people that I knew from Utah that I was connected with on LinkedIn. So I just sent a little note and just said, hey, it looks like you're connected with this gentleman. Are you just connected, or how well do you know them? Because they're looking at purchasing some properties here. And one person came back and said, hey, just connected through LinkedIn, don't know them. And I'm waiting for some others. So I'm doing some backdoor stuff because they don't have a digital footprint. They're
Yeah.
not on Wealth Engine. And so I'm skeptical by nature, right? I need to verify this before I even get them through the door. So some good points there. The other thing I want to ask you about is, if we're to role play and my name was on a letter from a CPA or a bank, and you were calling to verify, what does that phone call look like? I know what it looks like, but let's role play that a little bit. You're calling me, and I'm
Yep.
on a letter. I want to get in. I'm a banker, financial advisor to a buyer that wants to get through one of your properties. You're calling me. What are you saying?
Yeah, I'll pick up the phone. I'll call and I'll say, "Hey, Mike, this is Rod Watson. I'm with Distinct Concierge. How are you doing today?" And you'll say, "Hey, I'm great." Hey, or you'll say, "Hey, who is this?" Right? And I'll say, quick, I'm reaching out regarding your client such and such, and your client has inquired about seeing my client's property, and my client happens to be a high profile, individual, and we just want to make sure that we're checking the boxes to, ensure that your client is who they say they is, and the funds are available in their account. Can you verify the funds? That I'll say
Mhm.
that reflected on the document, and that those funds are available should your client decide to move forward with this purchase. Your client is stating that they're going to be paying all cash. Can you verify this? And that's pretty much how the conversation goes.
Perfect. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. And
Yep.
absolutely, that's something. And the other thing I have to say too is if you were the buyer's agent, I would give you a heads up. Hey, Rod, just so you know, I'm going to call to verify. So I don't want your client to take offense to it. Just calling to
Yep.
verify that this letter is legitimate. Unfortunately, we've had some fake letters in the past. And so again, I can't pry. They're not going to share confidential information, but I'm just calling to verify that they in fact did write this letter that was dated, January 3rd, 2023, or whatever the date is on there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think on the side, if you're going to be an agent representing a client and maybe it's your first go round, in doing so, I think it's important to communicate to your client and your client's advisors, because there are expectations sometimes, especially, let's just say this celebrity or this athlete is younger and they've never bought a home before, but they're like, hey, I'm such and such. They should just let me see the home. And you have to express to them, communicate with them up front that these are going to be the expectations of the other side, meaning the listing agent and the seller. And they're going to want to verify that you have the money to purchase this property. So, with that being said, we want to make sure prior to going and scheduling this, prior to scheduling the showing, can you provide me with a proof of funds? Or we will need a proof of funds, and we'll need to make sure that the funds are within the proof of funds reflect the last 60 to 90 days, right?
Yeah.
And we also sure that there is a point of contact on that letter, or if that person can contact the actual agent and the seller to say, I'm here to, I'm contacting you on behalf of this individual. I want to verify that these funds are, and I'm going to be emailing you these documents with this information. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. So I think it's important to be very clear in communication around what the expectations are going to be if you're representing a high profile client buyer that wants to go out into a properties. So just or have one of their representatives go out there for them, so everyone's on the same page, and you don't run into those situations where it gets awkward because you didn't communicate with them, and they're like, hey, I'm such and such, why aren't they letting me see in the home? And it's like, well, you didn't tell me I was going to need, to have to provide them with that.
Yeah.
So and believe it or not, situations like that can cost you an opportunity. So just to be clear, on the other side, if you're on the other side, always communicate that up front.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Always communicate that to the buyer, manage their expectations.
Mhm.
And if you represent the seller and you don't do your due diligence, that can cost you a listing. I mean,
Yes.
for sure. Now, I've had the situation, Rod, where the the buyer did not provide proof of funds, but they gave us their name, and there was a large enough digital footprint on them that through due diligence, it appears that they would have the wherewithal to purchase that home. And so I've had sellers that say, without proof of funds, don't no showings. But even in those situations, I'll go back to them if you were my seller and say, hey, Rod, I know you told me no showings unless verifiable proof. In this case, they have not provided that. But what they have, Rod, they've given me the name, they've given me a little background on them. And so I want to provide you with what I have. Because what I don't want to happen, Rod, is you hear down the road that they bought the house and they wanted to get in your home, but because they didn't have proof of funds, I denied the showing. So I at least want to give you the opportunity to say, go ahead, Mike, based on this information, and you can do your own due diligence, and I'll provide you what I've dug up.
Yeah.
And so I at least throw it back to the seller to say no in that instance, because what you don't want is, they're at a holiday party, they're at a neighborhood gathering. It's like, oh man, I wanted to get in your home, Rod, but your agent would allow it me, right? You
Mhm.
don't want that to come back at you either.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you touched on it very well. There are going to be scenarios where you could be working with an ultra high, net worth client, and maybe it's not athlete, but maybe it's someone that's successful and they're highly recognized in business and being successful. And I had that scenario happen. And he didn't want to necessarily turn over his proof of funds. He felt that he should be able to see it at home because he had the money and his stature. So, I had to communicate to the seller to say, hey, look, this guy is legit. Here's you can Google him. Here's his information. I shared some articles on him. He was actually a VC. guy, venture capitalist, and he's almost worth $1 billion. He's done really well for himself. And in providing that information, then the agent was able to communicate with their client, and their client was like, "Okay, we're comfortable with that." And I think it just comes down to communication, really, about
Yeah.
you sharing or providing as much information as you can, as you just shared, about that individual, if they're not going to provide proof of funds. Because look, you can run into scenarios where you have some clients that can be difficult and they don't want to provide that information,
Mhm.
and they don't fully understand. That's why I always go back to communicating up front, set the expectation, letting them know this is what is expected of you in this market. It may be different in
Mhm.
Ohio, it may be different in Florida, it may be different in Texas, but in California, because of the high risk of home invasions, fraud, all of these things, we have to take the necessary steps to protect both sides. So this is why this is going to be expected of you. And so when you do that, it kind of lowers those barriers, and gets the individual to understand to comply. But in the event, if you do have a situation like that, it's best to gather as much information. And as I shared, Google can be your best friend, right? Or
Mhm.
LinkedIn, as you share, can be a
Mhm.
great for you to be able to gather information to present to a potential, or sorry, to a seller or a seller and his clients. So therefore, they can review that information and make a decision on whether or not they want to allow the individual to the home. So that way, your client can never say you didn't make the effort to do your job to
Yeah.
try. They can always say no, but at least you've handled it in the right way.
Yeah. No, that's great. Some really good insight there, Rod. I appreciate that. Um, you're absolutely right. So let's pivot a little bit, right?
Yep.
And so let's talk about, you just had a $10.5 million sale. You represented the buyer without giving away confidential information. Would you mind sharing? Is this somebody in your database, or somebody that you called on one of your listings? How
Yep.
did you acquire in your market this ultra high end buyer?
Yeah, well, this was actually a relationship with a business associate, business partner. This was a high-profile client, plays professional sports. I can't say it's his or her name. However, it was a direct relationship referral. Obviously, over the years I've spent working in this space, I've built a name for myself, and therefore that has built trust. And as I've shared with a lot of people, it's not easy to be successful in the Los Angeles, California, especially specifically working with high profile players, individuals. Everybody's trying to position themselves to work in this space. Or should I say, a lot of people are super competitive. So, you
Mhm.
know, I've set a staple, one, that I can be trusted. I know I'm competent. I understand representation. I understand protecting the client and their privacy. And I also make sure it's a great experience for my clients. So as a result of building that, you know, brand and having that behind my name, I've built trust where individuals are now comfortable to come to me and refer those clients and know that I can get the job done. So it was a referral from a close source within my network.
No, that's great. Well, congratulations on that.
Yep.
Now, do you do anything on the buy side or on the sell side where, when you just sell that property, let's talk buy side now. Do you do anything, without name dropping, forget the celebrity side, but just do you do any kind of mailer to that neighborhood, around there, saying, hey, we represented the buyer. If you're thinking about selling, I might have that buyer.
Yeah, so if it's a confidentiality situation, we're never going to name drop. But however, if it's on the MLS, we of course have the opportunity, because it is public information at that point. And what we do is we'll circle dial, or we'll farm an area where we'll send out mailers, letting them know that we're working with clients, just like the client we represented in purchasing that property in their area. And if that seller is considering or even thinking about potentially selling their property, we'd like to have a conversation with them to see how we can assist them and perhaps put a deal together. So we do take that approach. I tell people, anytime you sell a property, whether it's a listing or a representative buyer side, that's gold. That's your opportunity. If
Mhm.
you are already working in that space and you want an opportunity to sell more homes, just like that, 10 and a half, well, it was 10.6 million, 10,650,000 to be exact. And that's Malibu, and that's actually a low price point. So there are a significant amount of higher sales. I mean, we just had maybe 3 or 4 $100 million sales over the last 2 years in Malibu. So it's important to get in the game when you have a sale like that specifically, and
Mhm.
let people know not only did you sell the property, but you have potential other clients. And if you don't have potential other clients, then at that immediate moment, you can still communicate the fact that you did sell that property and that you are working with these types of clients. And then maybe you
Mhm.
can, put a deal together and just be
Yep.
honest front with the clients. But yeah, we do utilize that
Good.
approach. We found, even just with your regular 600, 400, 500, or $1 million sales, we still take that approach. And it's important to leverage sales in any market that you're in.
Hmm. Well, let's talk as we kind of almost wrap this up here. Some really great nuggets here. Really appreciate you taking time with.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about some tips. Like keep it real simple to review. Uh, Getting started. We talked about don'ts. If I'm a new market, if I'm an agent, newer or seasoned, moving to a new market. Give me 2 or 3 tips that you would give to break into those upper price points, not even necessarily celebrity or athletes, but it could be some tips on what to do in your local market, because we have listenership and viewership all across the world. Give me 2 or 3 tips if you have these relationships locally, but not knowing what you know, or not knowing what you know. If you were to move to Chicago, LA, from LA to Chicago to New York to Dallas, I know Houston's close to there. What would you recommend for the agents that aren't working with celebrities or athletes, but they want to increase their average sale price?
Yeah. One, I would say position yourself when entering any market that you are seeking to have success working with a specific clientele, demographic, or price point by being very clear on the value that you have to offer. We use the term your value prop or value proposition. Really make sure you have that dialed in, right? And understanding that is going to be your lead into being able to, garner attention or work towards building relationships. So you definitely want to make sure you have a very strong value prop that is very clear on what you're offering. Then the other thing is, I would say definitely focus on building relationships. Be patient with the process. It's going to take time. I tell people, look, if you want to get in this business and have success, if you don't have 10 years and you're not willing to, well, I should say you're not willing to commit 5 to 10 years of hustling and grinding and building, then you may want to look for another profession, because it's not for the weak, but there is a lot of opportunity if you're headstrong and you're positive and you go out and you focus on building real relationships, build your database up. That's what I did. I took a lot of coffee meetings, met with a lot of people, bought lunches. I mean, how much is a Starbucks coffee? Or how much is a lunch at your, local reasonable price, where restaurant where you can spend 30, 40, $50. I know prices are higher now, when you go to
Yeah,
places.
yeah.
But
Everything.
the point is, you know, build relationships. I think that's important, right? And also understanding your market. Spend time studying the properties that are moving in the price points that you want to, be selling. Know what the average price per square foot is. Go on caravans. When you go on caravans, introduce yourself to those agents. Let them know that, you're entering a market, you're wanting to work with other, successful agents like them. Let them know, hey, I've read some research about you. Do your research on agents. If you're going to go to a caravan, Google that agents, look them up, see what their past sales are. Find something where you have something in common with them, or hey, you may know about that property that they sold, or say, hey, that was an amazing sale that you get. Like, compliment them. That those things help build rapport, and it's all about relationship building. And the last thing I'll say is, if you want to be successful in the space, whether it's representing athletes, whether it's working in a market where you're selling ultra high luxury or just luxury properties, then you're gonna have to have a consistent game plan. Something that is gonna require you to be accountable for your day-to-day or weekly or monthly actions that you can track and measure, and have a partner or someone within your firm, or be in an environment where those people are successful and they have consistency at building measurable and predictable businesses. So it's all about environment, putting yourself in a place where you can be held accountable, having a roadmap to success. We call that a business plan. And being in that environment where others are doing and practicing what they say they're going to do will help you begin to have success and break into that space. So I like to say evolve into that space, because everything's about an evolution. It's about evolving. Like, learn. I read a lot of books, read as many books, read as many articles on past sale, who's buying, what for what. Study the off market sales, talk to your local title reps to get data around what's selling, who's paying cash for what, and what properties are trading for in your market. Knowledge you know, in a market is a very, very key. Because look, when you're talking to these advisors of these individuals, whether it's a high profile client or a high net worth client, they want to know, do you know your market? You know, understanding what cost aggregation is, meaning, are you studying what it's going to cost to acquire an asset like this for a high profile client? What is the upkeep going to be, right? You know, what is the potential ROI? Does the market show that it's going down, or is the market soft, or is this a good time to buy? You need to be able to answer those questions when you're speaking with these individuals in the local market. So it's really about studying. It's almost like going to study for your doctors or going to college, right? It's going to require a lot of attention to detail, a lot of commitment. So you have to be on your A game, and you have to be prepared to go all in.
Oh man, wow. Some lot of nuggets Rod just shared with us. A couple things he talked about caravan. Some of you might know it as broker tours in your market. Caravan broker tours. You know, Rod, I teach a concept for agents looking to break into luxury, the old naughty by nature, OPP, leveraging other people's properties. And one of those is going on broker tours, building your knowledge in the local market, your confidence, understanding the materials and all the things that you had kind of mentioned there. The other thing, you used the word evolve. It's not there, you know, people are always looking for the
Yeah,
easy button, right? There's no easy button. It evolves over time, right? And so you talked about a business plan, strategies, goal setting. This is perfect as 2023 kicks off. So just some really great nuggets. I appreciate your time. You know,
yeah,
keep raising the bar in your local market. Love what
yep.
you're doing, and we'll have you back on again. Some great information, Rod. And again, we got Rod Watson here. Check out his website, distinctconciergere.com, distinctconciergere.com. Rod, I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Mike, man. It's great reconnecting with you again. Wishing you a lot of success in 2023. You know, you're definitely someone that set a mark. You know, obviously we had a chance to connect back in 2017 when you had me on your podcast. So it's great to see your success. Congrats on that sale with that high profile player in there in Chicago. I actually saw the post. So that was on Instagram. That was major, man. And wishing many more to you in the near future. So thanks again.
I appreciate it, man. God bless.
Yep.
Again, this is Michael LaFido. Thank you, Rod. This is Michael LaFido. You're listening to another episode of the Luxury Specials podcast. Working smarter, not harder. We'd love to hear from you. If you're getting value from this episode or previous episodes, please. You know, Rod brought some great nuggets. Rod wasn't compensated. He's not a paid guest. He's investing his time to help raise the bar and give back. And that's what I hope to do as well. Give back to you. And so if you're getting value from it, please leave us a like, leave us a review. Guys, what you focus on expands. Put together a powerful business plan. Look at it, update it. Again, this doesn't happen. It doesn't evolve immediately, right? It takes time. It takes time. Rod gave some amazing nuggets. My name is Michael LaFido. Prove others wrong. Until next time, you're listening to another episode of the Luxury Specials Podcast. Make it a great day. Take care, everybody.